Well, good evening and welcome inside the Ford Studio, Detroit Public TV's Riley Broadcast Center. JP, the voice of Detroit, celebrating on St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Jamie McCarthy is here in the studio with us. We're going to share some stories and some memories. But first, here's your opportunity to get your own copy of this film, JP, the voice of Detroit, produced by Oliver Thornton and Jamie McCarthy, and yours truly. Let me now welcome in Jamie McCarthy. The start of the film, Shields is talking about how the music bed, 4-minute music bed, would start and he wasn't in the chair. I was in this chair and you weren't here yet. And Mr. Murray said, 4 minutes, and just like clockwork, here you came. It must be genetic.
You know, yeah. There's something about a clock.
Yeah.
Time, 5 minutes to you is not my 5 minutes. And I inherited that, unfortunately. But you know what? I knew there wasn't as much pressure showing up when I came out and Fred was putting the mic on me. He said 2 minutes, and I knew you had us covered.
We had
so
it.
You know what? I'm with a pro.
Well, listen, I should also say, and I'm remiss, when we put this film together, my standard was, will Judy McCarthy be happy with it? And that was the #1 standard. How is she?
She's great. You know what? She's we've got her down in Jupiter, Florida right now. She wanted to come back home, given everything that has taken place.
Sure.
I said, Mom, perhaps maybe stay there for a bit, and maybe I'll come get you. We'll drive down, because you don't want anybody to get on a plane. I'm certainly not going to say her age. She'd kill me. But over a certain age, right? From anything we've learned so far.
Probably includes us. All right, we're going to continue along. We want you to have your own copy of the film. We're going to share some more stories. We've got tons of pictures we want to share as well in that big combo. So go over to that phone. Here's one more look at the $72 giving level and above. Celebrate with us the DVD of the film. $6 ongoing is a monthly sustainer as we celebrate St. Patrick's Day together. Maybe this is our way of saying thank you when you do make that all-important contribution of support right now. Let us now welcome in Jamie McCarthy to our studios. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Last time I was here, I believe I was talking in a bit of a brogue. But,
yes, you were.
That was a fun put on for this night tonight, and look what's happened. We can't even. Should I give myself a thorough hand washing? Or?
Probably. Well, you know, given our current condition, it struck me watching the film tonight. Boy, JP would really be a voice of reason and someone we could count on during something like this.
100%. He would. He'd do his best anyway to have as many scientists and doctors and specialists as possible, as quickly as he could to try and solve and get on the case. 100% to totally see if he could personally do his best to knock it out. He didn't like sickness, at all of any kind, and so and he was really into the medical field. So that's what he'd be doing for sure.
Continuing now with Jamie McCarthy, we're all, I guess we're all inspired these days by the love and the revitalization of the city downtown. But going back to Roman Gribbs and Jerry Kavanaugh and Coleman Young, Dennis Archer, JP was always a Detroit booster and a supporter and wanted it to do well.
Nothing was more important. I mean, there was family, and there was his faith, and maybe golf once in a while. But honestly, Detroit, all he wanted was Detroit to become what I think it is now. That was he refused when everybody was leaving the city way back when, and he was in the Fisher Building down. He said, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here, and we're not leaving, and we're going to be here. We'll be the last ones. You'll have to drag us out. And I admire that.
Yeah, there was, for a time, the idea that they may move out, and boy, I guess he put a stop to that.
Quickly.
As a father, you spoke about that a little bit. When it came to your mother, I think you wrote this in the Shields book. You wrote this in the Shields book. He didn't want us to be mama's boys, but we better have respect for our mother, and you certainly did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He definitely was tough. He was very tough. Particularly, I mean, he might have been a little old school, but everybody grows up in a different time in history. But he was way tougher on my brothers and I than he was. But, you know, he was a great dad. But, yeah, you didn't, Mom was up here on the pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, untouchable.
And that comes through. And I think it was Lee Allen in the film also saying that he brought his family sort of on the air. A lot of people just, keep that, change your name, do things more distantly. He was almost like a neighbor, just he was on the radio.
I think one of the things, he was very, very interested in what people thought and had to say, very curious in not always what a president would say. Yes, he interviewed them, or an actor, an actress would say, but really what real people, as we call them, he wanted their opinions, and he wanted to know what they thought, and he wanted to make them the star of the show. People first.
We want you to make a contribution right now and keep public television alive. Keep this, our ability to make local films like this and tell Detroit stories alive. More of a frivolous observation, but love the sport coat. JP, known to say you can never go wrong with a good sport coat.
Yeah, and shoes. Shoes. These shoes actually are my dad's. Got to wear those.
Yeah.
These shoes are my dad's. And,
wow.
And you're right. He said you can never go wrong with a good sport coat. Now, as time went on, my brothers and I had different thoughts, but it was sort of like.
But isn't that a universal truth, though? Now that you're, of the age,
sure,
you can never go wrong with a good sport coat.
No, a good sport coat will change the bum in anybody.
That's for sure. Well, listen, we want to hear from you. Call the number on the screen. You can also text that 800 number. That'll take you to the mobile giving link in the final moments. But do not wait. We have the great combos for you, the films and all the rest. JP, the voice of Detroit on this St. Patrick's Day. Get to that phone or online at dptv.org. Part of the St. Patrick's Day celebration, as I recall, whether it was the studio or Fisher or the Fox, was afterwards there were services. And I think there was some philanthropy there, just getting people to that church and passing the plate.
Absolutely. And getting people to the church on St. Patrick's Day really might have been his greatest challenge.
Yeah.
But he had two cardinals that would show up often, and he knew how to, and also Father Cunningham, who was a great family friend. He knew how to get people, use the great in people to get to the rest of the people, and so he would say, Colonel Maida, is there something the folks should know today? And then he would send the message, rather than coming from my dad, who was obviously imperfect, but a lot of fun.
Well, part of that, of course, was if JP's going, I'm going. So it's part of that whole tradition of that day. Well, there's a number of ways we can say thank you. Heading back to the film in just a moment or so, but right now, reach out, make a contribution, get one of these great audio or video packages on JP McCarthy, the voice of Detroit. JP, the voice of Detroit. Hi, Fred Nahat here with Jamie McCarthy, of course, the son of JP McCarthy and co-producer of this film, wiping a tear from our eye collectively. And boy, Jamie, this was a great film to work on, to put together, but putting it together, I think, may have been cathartic for you.
It definitely was. When you go back and you listen to 40 years, or maybe even more, when starting with probably when he was 20-something and talking, talking like this. He was really trying to push his voice. It was crazy. But I got to know a different side of my dad. Because to me, growing up forever, and my brothers and sisters, there's 5 more of us, could attest. We didn't ever talk about what my dad did. Yeah. He was dad, and he was pretty strict actually. So he was a good dad.
Well, the film is just part of our celebration here, trying to put some fun and a little bit of glow on this day, sharing some memories, some stories. We have a bunch of pictures we want to go through, but we also want you to have your...
Yeah, he really kept things... one thing that he did, and we've talked about this a lot when we were making the film and off air, he made it about, like, I think it was a Shakespearean thing, the play is the thing, the show is the thing. He never made it about himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he always made it about what was important, which really was all of us, the community, his listeners, and everybody that he brought in to be a part of that world. It was never about him.
Speaking of the community, the one famous story that, of course, at one point, some major retailer in town decided they weren't going to put the red kettles out, and without any preaching, he made a couple of phone calls, and before his show was over, Talk about that.
So he had, for those who don't know, he had winners and losers of the day, every day. And somebody called in around Christmas time one year, during the holidays, and said, you know, I don't, I'm not going to name the department store. I don't see, you know, what usually is going on outside of the store, what, you know, what's happening, and I'd like to nominate them as the loser of the day. And my dad said, oh, that's curious. Maybe I make a couple of phone calls and we'll see if we can, you know, put some cheer back into those who need it this season. And he said, well, we're going to make them a loser of the day, but perhaps they can redeem themselves. Never called anybody out, never got nasty, and the next day they were there.
There they were, the Red Kettles.
Became the winner of the day.
Back in place.
Yeah.
Well, we want you to be a winner by making a contribution right now, whatever giving level, that's cool. We do have the film at the $72 giving level and above. A number of other ways we'll go through it. But connect with us right now here on this St. Patrick's Day.
jptv.org.
Well, you can join us as a sustainer, get one of the great thank you gifts, the film and the great combos, the audio packages as well. With Jamie McCarthy in the final moments on this St. Patrick's Day, one of the things also about the film, you have Lee Allen, Eric Smith, Diana Lewis, and then competitors like Dick Purton, still all such great admiration and respect for your dad.
Yeah, Dick, when my dad passed, one of the first letters that we got was from Dick Purton, and it was one of the most beautifully written letters that you've ever seen. And interestingly, you know, some of us were friends. They're a big family of children as well. Yeah. And Julie Purton was a good friend of mine, and great family. And yes, they were competitors, but they, somewhat like in sports, after the game's over, sort of, there's a mutual respect because they know what they're, you know, they're playing in that game, so they understand what goes into it. But my dad had huge respect for Dick Purton, and Dick Purton, again, couldn't have been a nicer guy by writing that letter.
One of the things I have to say, though, is he was always evolving, and the idea, the Fat Bob Taylor bits with all the voices, I mean, I don't know that anyone was doing that beforehand. It became really the order of the day.
Do you know, I have to explain that to some people, because there's always people that, throughout the years, that'll come and say, hey, did you hear Opie and Anthony or Howard Stern or so-and-so doing this bit? And I'll think back and I'll be like, in 1965, my dad had on Fat Bob the Singing Plumber from Ann Arbor, which then turned into Priscilla Pennyfeather, Luigi at the Car Wash, and so many others.
Well, you think about that serious program, Howard Stern, for example, the sort of the melding of his own staff as characters, as almost a reality show, and then doing voices impersonations. That was the Fat Bob bit from JP in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of people think of my dad, who he was on the radio in the late 80s and early 90s, but he was actually a bit audacious back in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, he did a lot of crazy bits, nothing like Stern does. Interestingly, when Stern came to town, I think it was in '96, before the Sirius deal, he ripped on everybody in Detroit radio because that's what he does. Yeah. Obviously, he respected some, you know, like Drew and Mike. I'm sure he thought they were good. Yeah. But then, because he said, but when there was one guy when I was there, J.P. McCarthy, he was the king of interviews, and literally that I got a bit choked up because, you know, Howard Stern is Howard Stern. Yeah. And him paying tribute in the middle of, you know, his bit about saying he's the only one in radio that can do it. It was pretty nice. It was great,
Well, lots of tributes, of course, following your father's passing, and I guess we'll close on that note. St. Hugo of the Hills, Dave Dials delivers the eulogy. A sad day for everybody. Broadcast here in Metro Detroit.
Yeah, it was. Here's the crazy thing. He would never want any of that. Maybe not even this. I think we've done him proud, though. But I think he would not want so much attention. And he would be happy that people are moving on and really just being true to who they are.
Well, let that be the final word. Jamie McCarthy, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Pleasant, peaceful evening to you. Think about making that call, that contribution.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.